welcome to our latest episode of Ask the Betrayed. Today, we're going to talk about something that happens to every betrayed partner, male, female, long-term betrayed, short-term betrayed. In the different stages of healing, we're going to talk about what do you do when you get really stuck? And I think one of the things that we should first talk about is what does stuck look like? Me personally, I'm going to say I play solitaire more when I'm stuck than when I'm not. So that's always an indicator. Like I look at my phone on the little thing and it'll go 1 hour of playing games. And I'll be like, oh, what am I hiding from?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that distraction and a little dopamine isn't a bad idea. It's great. It needs to be transitory. It needs to be something that you do in transition to move you to the next thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Stuck also can look like waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about the same thing over and over and over again. So we often say if you have trouble going to sleep, it's because you're sad. If you have trouble staying asleep, it's because you're worried.
Wow.
Stuck also could be that you are walking around with the same emotion all the time. That emotion could be numb. That emotion could be angry or frustrated, low simmer, irritated. What do you think of when you think about someone getting stuck?
Discouragement is the first word that comes to mind. There is a sense of failure potentially implicit with the idea of being stuck, like I'm doing it wrong. So not only do we feel distress about whatever's freezing us, but then we're also feeling distress about how we're handling what's freezing us. I also always go to the idea that being stuck as a feeling, it's a sense that we have, it's an experience that we attune to, and it's also a story that we tell ourselves. It's a belief that we latch onto, usually, because it's so anxiety producing or so distressing, that the motion or the progress, the growth, the healing, the trajectory that we've worked so freaking hard to develop is somehow stalling. It's somehow failing us. It's somehow letting us down, or we're somehow missing the boat.
And that it is something inherently wrong with us.
Yeah, we hear that. I think you're right. The way you said it in your opening statement, we see that in every single betrayed partner experience at some point or another, in some way or another.
I think about having systems versus being stuck as well. And how can you look at your life and go, okay, so I do this and this and this and this, and that is the structure of my day. Yay, that's not stuck, right? That's creating structure. That's having a way that you live your life that works for you. Stuck would be doing something and not knowing what the motivation is. Like being
going through the
default,
motions.
yeah, just being in default mode.
Oh, almost like unconscious
Unconscious.
or not present.
Waiting for a day to end. Now, there are days that I could not wait for the day to end in our recovery. There are days just in regular life that you might be waiting for them to end. But if every day looks like that,
Yeah.
if you're just surviving, then you're stuck. The number one step to getting unstuck
is
to assess your feelings. What's happening for me?
Yeah. Like put names to the emotions, the experience, identifying, defining them.
Yes, absolutely. So often we think about what's happening for us without taking that crucial step of identifying literally what's happening inside of us. And so we do a really fun thing that I've done my whole career, and it's called a feelings body. And I should have brought one. I'll ask James to put one in the comments. But what we do with clients is we draw a little body form and we say, where do you feel sadness? So if you're watching this, let's just do sad,
Mhm.
right? Because it's a feeling that we all can relate to. Where do you feel sadness in your body? So close your eyes, think about the last time you felt sad. Huh, it might make me cry thinking about the last time I felt sad. I just was in Tennessee and my mom is doing really well, and it is always hard to say goodbye to her. So that sadness, obviously, I feel it in my eyes, right? Because tears are starting to come. I feel a little right here, foggy maybe. It feels a little foggy right here. Chest is a little tight. My belly's a little jittery inside. That's what sad feels like to me in my body.
Mhm.
You get to pick a color. So let's pick blue, blue for sadness. And so you color in, let's do X marks. So I've got little X marks on my feelings body here and in my belly. And now I have a visual representation of what my sadness looks like.
Mhm.
The reason why that's good is sometimes we don't know. We're all up in our head. We're not present enough to know what we're feeling. And so if you've done it and you take a picture of it and you put it in your phone, you can look in your phone and go, oh, yeah, I'm feeling that. When I get mad, when I get really mad, like my hands are in fists, my left foot is stomping, those are really good indicators. So I've got red flames right on my hands and my feet and my feelings body. The reason why we do this is because nobody taught us how to identify our feelings when we were little. Now, if you are of my generation, we taught our children. We knew enough about whole children to begin teaching them about their feelings. And yay, like that's so great. I don't know that I was very good at identifying my feelings for a very long time.
Yeah.
If you can't identify how you're feeling, how do you know what's wrong?
Hmm.
How do you then come up with a game plan? I'm feeling this. I want to feel this. How am I going to get from here to there?
Yeah.
So, identifying your feelings is really good. We had a comment in our comment section, and it asked such a great question. Are there journaling prompts for betrayed? Daily journaling prompts. Now, you and I, we know the value of journaling.
Yeah.
We know the value of getting things out of your head and onto paper, right?
Externalize it, baby.
That's right. Take it from here and make it linear. So, yes, there are daily journaling prompts that we love. And the very first one is, how did you feel when you were waking up? And if you don't know this, you can feel more than one feeling at a time.
No, really? Newsflash.
And you can feel opposing things at the same time.
My ambivalence.
Mhm. So, first thing when you wake up in the morning, do a body check. What am I feeling this morning?
Mhm. I love what you said about if we don't know what we're feeling, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what might be right. We don't know what might be wrong. And it reminds me of something we hear and use a lot, which is the idea that feelings aren't good or bad. They're indicators. like the light that goes on in your car saying it's time to get your oil checked. So that idea of the identification leading to awareness, which then leads to empowerment, we can do something about what's going on.
Mhm. Mhm. Sometimes that's enough to get unstuck. Oh, I'm feeling blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I know what to do for that.
Yeah. And can I just say, I think the power of that comes from shifting from feeling like this is happening to me to this is something I am doing, or I am choosing, or I am engaging. It's different. It's a more active versus passive, and it's more powerful than powerless. That's
Yeah.
big.
Yes, absolutely. We also lean into the idea that feelings are not necessarily facts.
Say more.
And it is so helpful to know that. So you could be feeling uneasy.
Mhm.
One time I remember, I don't know where it was, pretty early in our recovery, and James was just acting suspicious. He wasn't himself. He wasn't really looking me in the eye. Of course, my betrayed brain said, "He's acting out again."
Mhm.
And then my trauma brain goes, "Oh, let's think about all of the ways that he could be acting out."
Off to the races.
Off to the races I went. And then along with that was, what am I going to do about it? And then I'm in that position of feeling victimized
Mhm.
and making up stories
Mhm.
that weren't true. I learned early in our journey to, instead of naming things for him, and this was really hard for me because I do that for a living, I would name it for myself. So, beautiful I statements.
Mhm.
I feel really unsettled and uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Is there something going on that can help explain why I'm feeling this way?
Mhm.
And of course, Mr. No is like, nope, nope, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, why don't you go? Because he was visiting, because we were separated. Why don't you go? And when you can figure out what it is, let me know.
Mhm.
We talk about a hot potato. They actually have a hot potato on Amazon that you can buy. And I can't believe my house is not full of them. So you take that hot potato of that uncomfortability and you go, ah. It's up to you to figure out what's going on for you. And then you can come back to me.
Mhm.
Now, we might go down the rabbit hole of starting to check devices, looking at GPS, all of that stuff because of that feeling of unease.
Mhm.
We're going to say some of that's normal.
Mhm.
We're going to say if that's what you really feel like you need to do, then do it. But don't spend your life doing it.
Mhm.
And try not to, because that feeling of unease could be something totally different. So, about 20 minutes later, he pulls back up in the driveway and he says, I forgot to tell my mom that I wrote a check for her insurance. And she wrote a check that I didn't know about. And one of the checks bounced. And he was feeling guilty about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all it was. Didn't have anything to do with me, didn't have anything to do with him acting out, his addiction, nothing. He was just walking around feeling guilty because he had not been as responsible about something as he wished he was.
When you talk about that rabbit trail option, it makes me think of the idea that when all we have in our toolkit is a hammer, every problem is going to look like a nail. Such a beautiful multi-purpose, multi-application kind of a statement. But when we have different ways of navigating and managing something like that suspicion, like that disease, like that anxiety, then we get to choose which one is most appropriate, most productive, most helpful. So I was talking to a client yesterday who was like, I always get a dream. I always have a dream when something's wrong, when something's up, and I have the dream and I confront him about it, or I have the dream and I ask the right question, or I have the dream and I figure out what's going on. And
Mhm.
sometimes I have the dream and I say, I don't have it in me today. I'm not going to do that. Not going to engage that. Not going to go there. That is every bit as much an active, healthy, self-caring choice at times, if it's the thing that is going to best reconnect me to my values, to my priorities, to the life that I'm choosing to live.
Mhm.
When you talk about that hot potato and the idea of handing off the problem versus needing to take probably a hyperactive responsibility for it, I think one of the questions becomes, what are we doing in the meantime? So one option being dig those rabbit holes deeper and deeper, but what other options do we have for managing our own discomfort while we're not being over responsible for somebody else's stuff?
My house was really clean during that time. I'm gonna,
You are a stress cleaner.
I am a stress cleaner. And so I would turn on great old disco music and clean. Sometimes I would choose to read a book. I am a voracious reader, and sometimes there's nothing better than to step into someone else's life. So that could also look like watching a TV show, doing a little distraction, not a all day, I'm not going to be aware of myself distraction, but a little distraction. Calling somebody.
Getting out of yourself.
Yeah,
Uh,
sharing that. This morning when I was getting ready, I was thinking about the idea of community service.
hmm.
And I know that this sounds like a non sequitur, but it's really not. I think about how in our families now, like that push to get into college, community service is part of everybody's life. What's going to look good on the college application for the children, blah, 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 blah. In my old private practice, one of the requirements to see me was that you must be active in a community service.
Hmm.
Not because I'm so community minded,
Mhm.
although I am, but because when you are giving to someone else, not only do you get a chance to feel something different,
Mhm.
but you get to think about something different too. And our trauma brains need a break. So, choosing the right community service, the right thing to do. So, you want it to be something that really highlights who you are, a place where you can go and be absolutely 100% yourself, not someone's mother, not someone's wife, someone who looks just like you, who feels just like you, who has the skills that you have, that has the heart that you have.
I sometimes think of that as stepping into the experience of being a human among other humans.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, that might have just exhausted you all, and I understand why, but calling somebody and saying, I'm waiting to find out why I feel anxious, sharing that burden,
Mhm.
pretty important.
Mhm. It is. I have a question. When we feel that discomfort of being stuck, the distress that comes with that, my immediate reaction is to go toward all things self-soothing, all things comforting, all things reassuring. And sometimes that's not what I need. Might be what I want, but it's not what I need. I remember you telling a story once, and I'll let you decide if you want to share it on the podcast, about one of your childbirth experiences and how you were so good at soothing away the contractions.
Mhm.
And soothing away the pain of the contractions didn't get the baby. on the way, didn't get the baby out, didn't get the delivery. So you needed to switch strategies.
Yes. Yes. So I will tell the story. I decided to have a home birth with our first, and I had a big blow up pool, and it was going to be a water birth, and it was in our bedroom. And the baby decided to come early, and he's still an early bird. I love that. Today actually is his 28th birthday. So, very apropos story. I was having contractions. I was having auras that went with my contractions. So I was like seeing all these really beautiful colors. I know that I was getting ready to have a contraction, and I could think of nothing better than getting this baby out in the water. So I climbed my big old body into the pool, and I zenned out like water. I am a July baby, Cancer, like me and water, we are good. And I would zone out, and my contractions would stop, and the midwife would haul me out. And so I like, please, please, please let me get back in. And she's like, no, it's not working. It's not working. So there I was out in the middle of the night, walking circles in my backyard because I had to be more proactive.
Mm-hmm.
My body was shutting down
Mm-hmm.
because of the pain instead of allowing myself to move through the pain so that he could come out.
Yeah, move being the
Mhm.
operative word.
So, obviously, moral of that story is if you're stuck, get moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to look like any one thing.
Yeah.
Turn some music on and dance. Do a few squats, whatever bilateral movement you can think of. We talk about walking, we talk about swinging a lot, right? Get out there, go to a playground and swing. You wouldn't believe the clients that we have across the country who are regulars at the playground
Yes.
because we have told them to swing.
Yes.
Right? If you think about the natural movements that we have
Mm-hmm.
trying to soothe ourselves, that rocking is something that we do naturally. Our bodies know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So get on a swing and do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Recognizing what you're feeling is so important. The next step is figuring out why.
Mm.
Why am I feeling this? What's happening for me that I'm feeling XYZ? So I'm going to go back to the example of me feeling uncomfortable, that disease, that something was going on. And I took the hot potato and I put it in James's lap. But at the same time, I had made a commitment to myself that I would not only identify what I was feeling uncomfortable, but I would also figure out why. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Well, I was feeling uncomfortable because he was not engaged with me.
Mm.
He was distracted. That connection that we'd been working on with each other was being interrupted by his feelings of guilt and shame. And it was a little thing, but it felt big to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt big to me.
I imagine it translated into messages like, you're not a priority. You're not important. I'm not invested in you or in this relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't matter.
Lots of times I felt very used.
I hear that a lot.
He's uncomfortable in his own skin. He comes to be with me, and I'm pretty good at smoothing people out. It's not our job to manage other people's emotions.
Can I just say that is major paradigm shift stuff. I wasn't taught to manage my emotions or to identify them as a kid. And then when I started identifying and allowing myself to have big feelings, I didn't know how to use them in healthy ways. I didn't know how to not project them with contagion and I would catch it from other people and I would project it onto other people. And I was an emotional tsunami
Mhm.
at times because managing other people's emotions felt like love, it felt like relationship.
Yes.
By extension, I wanted the people I loved to manage mine.
Yes.
That was the implicit exchange that probably defined the bulk of my first marriage, in fact.
So if you think about if your job has been managing other people's emotions, you're like a first responder 24 hours a day. If you're managing everybody's emotions in your home, right? It's not our job. It's a hard habit to break. And lots of times we manage other people's feelings because we don't want to deal with the fallout of their emotionality, which is why it's really good to have a list of things to do because boy, can that make you feel stuck, right?
Mhm.
To have a list of things to do that can get you unstuck and get you out of the habit of trying to manage other people's emotions.
Mhm. Mhm.
What are some of your favorite unsticking recipes?
I live a lot of my life on screens. It is my default.
Mm.
Work is my default. Problem solving is my default. So when I get caught up in a cycle of going through the motions, not being fully present, conscious, and intentional with my own life, I need a reset. And sometimes that looks like a solid weekend, just leaving my screens behind and being as engaged as I can with things like my more domestic side. I call it my kitchen therapy, or doing something out in the garden, just going shopping and having no real time I have to be back, or no real thing that I'm necessarily hunting for, something like that. But sometimes it requires an emergency self-care break.
Mm.
I remember a couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember, I had like three big things happen all at once. You know, like those bottlenecks where any one thing you could handle, even two or three things you could handle, but when they're all condensed in a really short period of time, they all hit. And small adjustments aren't going to fix it. So I put a vacation responder on my email. I let the people to whom I had commitments and were expecting things of me know that I just needed an emergency break and I would be back as soon as I possibly could. And I just let go of a lot of stuff for a while. That was the reset I needed to get unstuck. Other times it's not so drastic. I know you mentioned sleep and struggles falling asleep or staying asleep. The world is always better the next day. For me, in my experience, there's something magical that happens in an overnight 24-hour cycle. When something's bothering me, I know that it takes me a while to get my equilibrium back. And I know that it's about a 24-hour reset for me. You mentioned journaling. I'm a writer, so I could fill pages, not a problem. But sometimes that's its own rabbit trail.
Mm.
So I have loved finding journals with short little paragraph spaces, like 3 or 4 lines. It's a check-in of sorts for me.
Yes.
It might be something I'm grateful for each day. It might be something I'm setting an intention for the day. It might be something I'm working on. It might be something I'm observing in myself. It might be fill in the blank, the best part of my day or the worst part of my day. But it's journaling that simply captures a moment and an experience and a reflection. And here's why I find that valuable. If I look back at it the next day, I'm in a different spot.
Mhm.
I experience it differently. Those are the learning curves. If we're going to go back to that idea that those emotions are indicators of what's happening, we can let those things happen and not learn the lessons.
Yes.
Or we can let those things happen and soak every bit of self-awareness and observation and new learning and transformation out of it. And frankly, I think that's what we're trying to do as betrayal trauma survivors, is not let this crappy experience go to waste, but put it to good use and be better at the other side of it, on the end of it.
So true. That's so beautifully well said. And I think that you mentioned a lot of our favorite journaling prompts smushed in that sentence that you said.
That
I'm gonna,
ridiculously long run-on sentence. Yeah.
I didn't say it. Uh, so I'm gonna unpack that just a little bit, right?
Okay. Thank
So,
you. My
so
partner in
how are
crime.
you, how are you feeling? How do you want to feel? What
Yeah.
are, what are three actions you're gonna take to make that happen? We like AM and PM. We feel like that you can check in and see how you did. So, did you meet your goal? Why did you or why did you not meet your goal? What worked for you? What didn't? And my all-time favorite, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for today?
Mhm.
We know that in order to change behavior patterns, there has to be this active look at what you want to change and a practicing of it. So if you're walking around feeling numb all the time, which is a stuck position, what do you want to feel? What can you do to actually feel? So, as you were talking before, and my birth story sort of highlighted, sometimes what you choose to do isn't what you need to do. So, sometimes in trauma work with people, everybody's like, oh, mindfulness, do yoga, breath work, blah. All those things are great. What if you have someone who's walking around feeling numb all the time? What if it's somebody that's so sad? You want to activate them. You want to get them moving so they feel some life in their body.
Mhm. Beautifully said. My favorite journaling question is, what are you proud of yourself for today? What is something you can appreciate? What is something you did right today?
I love that. And I love one of your signature questions that you ask almost every group that we run is what's a sign of healing,
It's true.
right? They can be so subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And so really paying attention, what's a sign of healing in yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do a weekly, what's a sign of healing in somebody else, then okay, don't do it every minute of every day. Remember, you want to focus on you. Sometimes I wear reminders of what I'm working on.
Okay, tell us more.
So there are all kinds of bracelets that you can get that have sayings on them. I had a client give me actually both of these bracelets, but this one says strong.
Mm,
And so, oh, okay. So today is about me being strong.
yeah.
And so before I make a decision about everything that I'm going to do, I'm going to go, am I making this decision from a place of default, or am I making this a conscious decision and action from strength?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a great story of our friend Kat when I was going through my divorce. I was pretty much no contact with my now ex-husband for all kinds of different important reasons. But there was one particular event that had been pre-scheduled. I had really great reasons to show up there, and I thought there was a really high likelihood he would be there too. And I was telling Kat that my mantra going into that event was, I can do hard things and I am enough. Because with my marriage dying, I didn't feel I was good enough much of that time. Kat from London sends me a bracelet, and etched in the bracelet are the words, you are more. She didn't want me walking in there just feeling you are enough.
Mhm.
She wanted me to know that at least her experience and her observation and her belief in me was that I was more than enough. It really did make me feel like I had superpowers walking in there. It got me through it.
I love that story. Of course, Kat did that.
course, Kat did that.
If you find that you are feeling stuck and you are really trying hard to get unstuck and nothing's working, then you might need to ask for some help. Like if you're not functioning, functioning means getting out of bed, brushing your teeth,
Mhm.
showering, eating, sleeping, taking care of whatever's in your life that needs to be taken care of. Now, I'm not saying that there are times when we absolutely need to go to bed and pull the covers up over our heads, right? Like take a nap. There are things like that. But if that's happening to you day after day after day,
Mm.
then you need some expert help in getting unstuck. We are great proponents, obviously, of expert help, right? That's what we do for a living. There's no shame in needing help. You and I have the unique experience of being two-time winners, but most of our clients, this is the first time they've ever had to deal with anything.
And I jokingly say they don't teach us in high school how to deal with betrayal.
So ask for some help. You can ask your family physician for some help and a referral. You can go on Psychology Today and look for somebody locally in your area. Obviously, we are big fans of ABSATs and would want you to go to absats.org and look for someone who specializes in betrayal trauma recovery. You can ask us if we know somebody. Just shoot us an email at askthebetrayed@gmail.com. Shoot us an email and ask us if we know somebody in your area. Between you and me, we know a lot of people.
Yeah. If I can add to that, we know that that instinct to try to navigate through this alone is strong. It's legitimate, it's logical, right? But it is a trauma response.
Mm.
The idea that we have to be hyper independent and figure this out and tackle it, conquer it, survive it on our own, that indicates that we have experienced the trauma of relying on someone who didn't come through for us. And it feels safer to take all of that back onto our own shoulders. And when I hear and think about that in those terms, that instinct to try to do it all by myself is a trauma response, I am more compassionate toward myself.
We also can fall into this idea that what has happened to us is so humiliating that we don't want to share it with someone else. Like somehow we caused it. Somehow this is a reflection of who we are as people. And it is not. So doing the hard thing of stepping out of that isolation and asking for help can be life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to check my notes. I took a few notes. I don't know where my real glasses are, but I have my craft glasses in here. So we talked about journaling. We talked about mindfulness and meditation, but kind of in a negative way, not in a positive way. It's good for all of us. So whether your mindfulness and meditation comes in the form of prayer or some type of meditative practice, that's good. Creative outlets.
Mm.
How many times have we met betrayed partners who don't have a creative outlet? Our inner children need to play.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that looks like coloring in adult coloring books. Sometimes it looks like making jewelry like I do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's painting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's going out in the yard and gathering a bunch of seeds and flowers and making a mandala,
Yep.
right? But we have to allow that younger part of us to also feel alive. We've talked about eating and exercising and getting enough support. You talked about self-compassion.
Mhm.
I think the last thing, which we hinted at, but let's talk plainly about it, is focusing on what you can control. Once you've figured out what's going on for you, what can I control? So
Yeah.
in that story of me feeling uncomfortable, saying to James, what's going on? And I don't know, why don't you leave? Tell me then. Between you and me, I probably could have figured out what was wrong,
Mhm.
but I knew better.
Mhm.
I knew that that was not my job. So I chose to give him the responsibility of figuring out what was wrong with him and what did I have control over. I had control over how I handled the waiting. I had control over whether I was going to give whatever was happening with him any more airtime for me. And in that was this reminder that I was in charge of my own happiness, health,
Yeah.
day-to-day life,
Yeah.
and that if he could join me, that would be swell, but that I had to live life and not just sit and wait.
Yeah. I remember during those early days when that was a daily experience and I had to let go of so many things. I mean, sometimes hourly, it seemed. And it was new and it was hard. And I struggled to make it happen. I struggled to follow through on what I believed to be the healthiest choice, but I wasn't yet skilled at
Mhm.
doing it. And the support group that I was in was really big on slogans. And one of the favorite slogans that we shared with one another was let go and let God. And I remember the day when I realized that was not going to cut it for me because it was too open ended.
Mhm.
So I needed to say to myself, let go, let God, and go do the dishes. Let go, let God, and go to the movie. Let go, let God, and go take a shower. I had to have something else on the other end of that to make
Mhm.
letting go feel less nebulous and less directionless. And like you said, more in my control, that self-control kind of responsibility that comes with self-care.
Well, we talk about unfaithful, how when they remove the unhealthy behaviors, then they have to replace them with something else. And so that's exactly what you're talking about. But for us, if we want to stop something that's unhealthy, absolutely have to replace it with something that's healthy.
And can I just say, this is what I love so much about the approach that we take to our work and to our clients is we're able to synchronize and parallel this experience of unfaithfulness, infidelity, and betrayal and trauma and find tools that parallel one another. We find a common language for ourselves and our partners, for our couples and our clients. So the same interventions or the same tools, the same practices that one part of a couple is really utilizing to live life differently can echo and translate beautifully on the other side of the relationship. That's one of the things that we have fought and sought so hard to do differently than some of the other recovery environments out there in the world of addiction and betrayal, because we don't want it to be us against them. We don't want it to be alienating from one another. We really do look for ways that we can lean into that shared or parallel experience if we can.
Yes, that is so true.
We've covered a lot of stuff all over the map today, haven't we?
We were a little bit uh, like a sand digger on the beach. But I think that there probably were some pearls in there. And so we thank you for enduring this episode of How to Get Unstuck. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Like us if you like us, subscribe to us, and if you want to email us, please know that we'll read everything that we get and that we can't do therapy online. Next week, watch Ask the Unfaithful. We really appreciate all of you all that are watching us.
It's inspiring and encouraging to feel that this is a conversation we're sharing with you, not just with one another. And Sharon, I just want to say happy anniversary on the date when you became a mama.
Oh, thank you.
Special.
It is special. Thank you. All right, we'll see you next time.
All right, bye-bye.